Hey everyone and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video I'm going to be comparing university houses versus university halls. So for those of you that are new, I am a student at the University of Lincoln and I'm currently in my second year at uni now, so I have lived in a house for about half a year. So I feel like I've got a bit of experience of both. I lived in halls for first year, I lived in Lincoln Courts if anyone's considering going to Lincoln, and I absolutely loved it. But like with anything, there's always going to be advantages and disadvantages of living anywhere. I thought this video would be really cool to sort of like recap my experiences and compare university halls versus university house. Let's get into it because I've actually written a lot of things to talk about in this video because I feel like there is a lot of things to compare and a lot of things that differ that not a lot of people would probably think of when you originally think about the transition from halls to a house. Before we get on with the video, I'm doing this from my experience and from my university, so it could be different for where you're living, the university you go to and things like that. So do bear in mind that this is my personal experience and I'll try and be as like unbiased as I can towards like Lincoln, but I'm gonna obviously share my experiences because that's what I have to share. First things first is the application process. When it comes to actual applying for university accommodation, I applied through like a website that the University of Lincoln had, so it was pretty simple. Like the procedure was really easy. It literally gave you a list of all the different accommodation options. I selected them, put them in a ranking order, sent the application off. It was pretty smooth. Like all you had to do was really look around the different accommodations you were interested in on an open day or an applicant day, and then just decide where you wanted to live. However, the application for a house is a lot different. It makes you feel a lot more mature, a lot more scared, a lot more grown up, and you have to start getting in contact with letting agencies. Me and my best friends looked for a house only after 2 months of university starting, so it was very quick. We got a little bit panicked because a lot of people say that you need to get in quickly with your houses so that you get a good one. So literally only after 2 months of living in Lincoln, we were already looking for houses and already signed a contract within November, I think it was, when we'd only just started like the end of September. So it's pretty crazy how like quick everything goes on. You don't have to have it done by November. I don't want to scare anyone else, but we just wanted a really nice house. You can still find nice houses like later on in the year, but it's a lot more harder. So we thought we'd get our house first, and obviously the whole process is a lot different. You have to get in contact with letting agencies, but it's not as difficult as it may seem because the university will help you with that. If you go to like your student like help centre or like a reception or something at your university, someone will definitely give you guidance to letting agencies within Lincoln or within your area that you're living in, and there'll usually be like a whole list and you can get in contact with lots. We literally tried so many different letting agencies just to have a little bit of a feel for the different houses, have a feel for what the staff were like and how helpful they were, and we probably looked at about, I think I saw 3 and Hattie and Megan saw more than 3 because I was basically in London when they actually found the house that we're living in now, and because we're literally so close, we're all very similar people, I trusted them with anything because I knew that we all wanted the same thing. So they ended up finding this house and sent me like so many photos, told me all the details, and we all decided to like sign the contract for this house like ASAP so that we secured it. So yeah, it's a little bit different, but it's not as hard as it may seem. It's just not as simple as the university accommodation process. So yeah. Second thing is the distance. So as most of you will probably know, if you go to Lincoln, the accommodation is very, very close, especially the accommodation owned by Lincoln. It is very close to the university. I lived in Lincoln Courts and it took me like 5 minutes to walk to like the closest building, probably 2 minutes, and then 10 minutes maximum to walk to the opposite side of campus. So everything was so communal and close, and the distance was barely anything. Whereas now I'm living in a house, it takes me about 15 to 20 minutes to walk to university. I usually leave like half an hour before a lecture starts, whereas like when I was in courts, like if I woke up late, like I could actually make it on time. I could get ready in like 5 minutes and get to my lecture, whereas that can't really happen anymore. Like I have to be very prepared in the mornings. So distance is another thing that usually comes with moving to a house. You're usually further away than you were in halls. Obviously it's not the case for anyone, and also you don't have to like move to a student house. You can still stay in some certain accommodations if they allow like 2nd or 3rd years in there. But I just thought I really wanted to move into a house. I wanted to get even more independence and have an experience of being even more responsible. Like, it's weird, like every day me and my friends are literally like, we live in a house. Like, that's so weird. Like, we feel like we're like 12 still. We don't know how we're allowed to live in this house without someone telling us what to do. So yeah, it's a little bit weird, but yeah, anyway, back to distance. It is a little bit further, but it's not really anything in comparison to other universities that I know where people have to like even commute from where they're living, like in student halls. So yeah, it's not really a massive issue. And to be fair, the house that we have now is probably the furthest away from the uni that we saw, but it was the nicest and the one that fit all of our like desires. So yeah, that's a little bit about distance. Okay, third thing I want to talk about is who you're living with. In university halls, you have like some sort of input as to who you want to live with. Like, you can choose if you want like just one gender or if you want it to be mixed, and you do have some sort of preference if you want to, but nothing really too specific. And also it depends obviously where you're living, because some places will have like 4 people living there, some places will have like 10. It depends what accommodation you're applying to, but ultimately you're living with strangers. You don't really have a choice on who you're living with. You can, I know at Lincoln you could have put like certain names that you want to live with if you want to live in the same like block or building or even apartment, but yeah, you're essentially going to be living with strangers, which is a terrifying concept that I've discussed in many of my videos. I can assure you it's very, very easy to make friends, so do not worry about it. But ultimately you're living with strangers, so it's not the most comfortable when you're first living there. It's a little bit, it takes a little bit of getting used to, and yeah, I don't know. And obviously you can end up with really shitty flatmates, you can end up with really amazing flatmates who you become best friends with. So I can't really tell you what you're going to get because it's obviously very subjective from individual to individual. But I had one flatmate that I got on really well with, Hattie, who I'm living with now. And then obviously my other best friend who I live with, we've known each other since we were like 6, but she was living in a completely separate accommodation. We weren't planning on like ever living together like this, but I'm obviously so glad everything worked out like this, so that's what happened. And then obviously in your house you're living with your best mate, so I essentially think that I personally prefer living in a house so much more than halls, but I feel like it's an experience that you need to like have. But obviously I much prefer living in a house with my friends. We're so comfortable with each other. It feels like I'm living with like my boyfriend or something, because we're literally all so close to each other. Like, we're casual, there's no like tension or anyone feeling uncomfortable at any time, whereas in halls sometimes I'd feel like, oh, they're out there, I don't really want to go out there when they are, or you know, if you don't get on with someone you don't really want to cross paths with them, but it's kind of difficult when you're living with them. Whereas obviously you get on with everyone in your house most of the time, so yeah, I much prefer obviously living with my friends than strangers. Number 4 is washing clothes whenever I want. So that's another amazing thing about living in a house. I get to wash my clothes whenever I want. I don't have to pay £7,000 to wash my clothes. When I was living in halls, we had like a laundrette on site, and it would literally cost me, I think, almost £5 to wash and dry just one lot of clothes. So if I was doing a dark and a whites wash, it would pretty much cost me £10 every time I washed my clothes, which was ridiculous. Made my laundry basket fill up so quickly, and it was just like constantly overflowing because I couldn't afford to constantly be washing my clothes. Whereas here we get lots of fabric conditioner, we get lots of washing tablets, we split the price. It's so much cheaper and it's so much less of a hassle, because you literally have to like take the time out of your evening to be like, let's go wash some clothes. Then they'd take like an hour and a half, we'd walk back and then we'd walk out. It would take up a lot of your evening, and you can't really get any work done when you'd have that time. I don't know, it was just a big faff and inconvenience, so it's so much better being able to wash my clothes in a house now. It's something I definitely took for granted when I was at home. The next thing I wanted to talk about is security. Something I do miss about halls is how secure I was living in there. I've been through a very tough time with like sleeping and feeling comfortable in my own house and stuff, just generally throughout my lifetime, because of a variety of things. So I would panic quite a lot when it got into the evenings, and just knowing that there was security, I constantly saw wardens walking around Lincoln Courts. There was 24-hour security essentially, so they'd be constantly looking around the area, making sure no one was doing anything dodgy, making sure no one suspicious was around, and it just generally made me feel a lot safer, and I got to sleep very quickly when I was living in halls. However, not so much 2019, but the end part of 2018 when I first moved into this house, I just felt very like scared and wary. We ended up getting followed home, which obviously caused even more of a upsettance, is that a word? I don't know, but I was just very freaked out, like sleeping at night. I didn't feel very secure. Obviously we have like CCTV, alarms, like our letting agencies obviously fitted all of those things which allow us to have that bit of security, but yeah, it just doesn't feel as nice not living in like a really secluded campus where there's constant like security wardens walking around. The next thing is sort of going back to distance. Because we live a little bit further out from like the centre heart of town, it takes a little bit longer to walk to everything. However, it's not really much of an issue for us. It's again sort of like walking to uni. If I'm walking to uni, then I'll plan a trip into town if I need to, like if I need to get anything specific like food wise or any clothing for like the gym or uni, or just any general things that I need from town. Like I'll usually plan it around my day at uni because I'm at uni and it's closer to the town centre, so I'll sort of just like plan it around it, and it's not much of an issue. But obviously it was nicer when I was at halls because I could just walk into town whenever I pleased, and it was a lot closer, or it seemed a lot closer. It probably actually isn't that much of a difference, but it just didn't seem as much when I was in halls. Next thing I want to talk about is taxis and like transport. So I didn't really use any transport apart from obviously the train when I went home or to see my boyfriend. I didn't really use any transport around Lincoln, like taxis, buses, anything like that. Everything was so close because I was in halls. Whereas we've had to use taxis like a variety of times. One, because of the whole following home situation, and two, going out at night is not very safe. Like we're obviously on a street that's very, very dim lit. There's like not very many people around when it gets late at night, whereas when you're living in halls, there's students constantly going out every single night. There's a lot of people around. You don't feel so unsafe. So we usually get taxis to and from like town. If we're going out like clubbing or out for cocktails or anything, we'll always get a taxi, which obviously adds another bit of an expense to our lives. So it's not completely necessary, but we just like feeling a little bit safer and spending that extra money, especially being girls. It's a bit shitty. What can you do? I'd rather spend that little bit of money, stay safe, rather than put myself in danger and have a little bit more money, you know? Next thing is maintenance. So when I was in halls, all of the money, because we're spending a lot of money on living in student halls, maintenance was super quick. Like if anything broke, got damaged, wasn't working, then maintenance would be there so quickly. Like we're either on the same day or the next day. Like everything was done super quickly. It was great, very efficient, very lovely people who came and fixed everything, and it was always done within like 48 hours max. So yeah, I do really miss that about student halls because they like catered for your needs so quickly, whereas here we have had hit and miss experiences. It depends what letting agency you're with. It depends how quick people are at responding to your emails, but every time they need something, we respond quickly. Every time we need something, they don't respond very quickly, so it's a little bit shitty. I've got like a hole in my room still because a rat chewed in. We love that. If you see my vlogs, you'll know that I had a rat come into my room, ate a whole tub of hand cream over Christmas, which is fab, and it still didn't die. Yeah, I had a little bit of a rat experience. They still haven't fixed the hole from that, so that's a little bit unnerving, having a little rat hole in my room. We've got the landing light is not working, which is obviously quite dangerous in the night when if like Megan or Hattie needs to go downstairs to the toilet. What else is not working? Something's wrong with the boiler, another issue that I'm very worried about, and they still won't really respond to. And yeah, just a few little things that they won't respond to. Other things they have responded to really quickly, like got someone out straight away or the next day. But yeah, it's a little bit hit or miss, so I do miss how quick the maintenance was in halls. Right, next thing is the post office / mail. So whenever I used to get mail in halls, I would never know if I actually had got it unless I got an email from like a specific company. Like, you know, if you order from like a clothing site, sometimes they email saying your order has been signed and received by your post office or whatever, and they'd actually have like a little on-site post office for people who were in Lincoln Courts and Signet Wharf. And I'd go probably most days because I like work with a lot of brands because I have my blog, and I'd get lots of like blogger mail, and I'd also obviously buy clothes and other random bits and bobs. So it was just a bit of a faff. Like, it would be good because it was open 24 hours, so if I really wanted to, I could go at 4 AM and get a parcel from the following day or from the previous day. But it was just a bit of a faff. You had to go in, like show ID, like sign papers, unbox like the little mailbox, then hold the leaflet over. It was just a little bit, it took a little bit of time out of your day, and also you didn't get notified really if you had a parcel in there unless someone from your flat told you or whatever. Whereas here, obviously, it's a lot better because you just get stuff straight to your door, and if you miss it, you get a little post office slip. And luckily, our closest post office where they like deposit all the parcels is very close, and it's sort of like on the way back from uni, so it's fab for us, and we're quite lucky because we obviously didn't really research that before we moved here. So we are quite lucky in that sense, but it's just nice being notified and knowing when a parcel's here rather than just having to guess and go to the hall's little post office. And also the post office staff was so nasty inside the Minerva building. There's like a little post room, and they would always be so nasty to me and like put me in like a horrible mood and make me feel like shit the whole day. So I'm really glad that it's just me who has to receive the things here, or like Megan or Hattie or whatever. And usually most of the time one of us is in the house, so it's just a very easy process, like a normal process. Something again that I missed and took advantage of when I was at home. Okay, so this isn't something particularly that affected me or I had, but I know that obviously some people do this. Some people in halls have like a catered service, so they might have like a concierge, or they might have like breakfast included that's made for them, or some sort of buffet thing, whereas I didn't have this at all. Like I could not afford anything like this, but some people can afford like catered things, or like some people have like cleaners who would clean their room and things. And I thought this was a good difference, because obviously when you're in a house you don't have cleaners, you don't have people making your food, everything, all your responsibilities are on you. So yeah, you have to be a lot more responsible when you're in a house, and there are a lot more things to like think about and do off your own back, whereas in halls you can sort of rely on the university a bit. You have like the maintenance guy, you have all these people doing things for you, but ultimately you have a lot more responsibility when you're in your own house. Okay, last few things. Bathroom situation. So most people when they move into halls, I know a few places don't, but it's cheaper, which is obviously a bonus, but most people usually go for an ensuite when they move into halls. I had an ensuite last year. I absolutely loved it. It was just nice having your own bathroom, your own little private space, so you don't have to share anything. Whereas in houses, you might just only have like one bathroom between 3 or 4 of you, so you all have to share a bathroom. Not that it's a massive issue, but sometimes it is quite nice having your own little bathroom. I'm sort of a bit different. Basically, I have the biggest room in the house. We all pulled straws. It was done fairly, don't worry. But I have my own bathroom upstairs, whereas my two best friends, Megan and Hattie, share a bathroom downstairs. We obviously all use the bathroom downstairs, but they like share it for like showering. Whereas I have my own ensuite up here, so obviously I use that more. But I do pay more than them to have the extra bathroom, so it all works out fairly. So yeah, you could be lucky and have your own ensuite in a house. I'm not saying you can't, but most of the time you will have to share a bathroom when you go to a house. Right, next thing is cleanliness. I found in halls it got very dirty very quickly, because there's obviously a lot of people living in a small space, so lots of like washing up got piled up, the floors were filthy, like the oven was disgusting, like there's a lot of dirt and shit going on. The bin bags would fill up so quickly, it would be absolutely vile. And that is something that I really do not miss about halls, because it just made me really uncomfortable like cooking when it was like disgusting and there was like fucking gross smells in the air. Whereas in a house, me, Megan and Hattie all know each other. We're not grossed out by each other. Fine if we leave a couple of plates out or whatever, we just know what's going on because we can see it all happening, because we're all close. So everything's a little bit cleaner, and it's just a better environment to live in, because it's just, I don't know, it just feels a lot nicer living with less people and being able to clean up for yourselves and everyone. Next thing I wanted to talk about was loudness, which may seem like a very weird one, but student halls were very noisy, literally so loud all the time. And student housing is not very different. It obviously depends where you live. So you've got more of a chance living in a house that is going to be more quieter, but you usually are in an area where other students are living, so you can't get away from them completely. There are parties going on next door like most nights, so it's not that much of a difference compared to halls for us, to be honest, but it could be for you, so that would be great. The walls are a little bit thicker here than they were in halls. Like halls were literally paper thin walls, so you really could hear everything that was happening on next door or outside, but it's a little bit thicker, so yeah, I guess it's okay. So last thing I want to talk about is like money and paying for your house compared to halls. Universities usually mug you off and make you pay a ridiculous amount of money for halls. I think in my first year I was paying roughly like almost £130 a week to live in halls, which is really ridiculous, but and that was the cheapest option as well, which is mental. Whereas in houses you usually pay a lot less. I know people that are literally paying £85 a week, which is obviously a significant difference from 130, which is amazing. So you obviously have a lot more money to spend on like food and clothing and other random things that you may want. Mine isn't a massive difference because I am paying a little bit more for my ensuite, so I'm paying £118 I think, a week. So obviously a little bit more on the expensive scale for a student house, but I'm quite happy paying that because we live in a really lovely house. We're quite lucky to have such a nice house as it is a student house. So yeah, I really enjoy living here and I didn't really mind paying that because it still was cheaper than student halls. But I know people that have literally paid like £80 to £100 a week, so it is nice having that little bit of extra money because it does make a difference, especially when you're a student. So yeah. So there are all my comparisons for houses versus halls. I really hope this has been somewhat insightful for you, whether you live at university or not, and you just sort of just fancied watching this. I thought it was quite nice to draw all of the comparisons together so you can like proper see the good and bad of both. I don't want this video to worry anyone or anything. I just thought it would be like a fun video to film and a little bit insightful. So yeah, I really hope this has helped you guys out. Make sure to smash thumbs up. Let me know if you want me to do any other comparisons about uni things. I definitely want to do something else along these lines because I found it really fun to like plan it all out and stuff and share with you guys my experiences. And I want to do like a whole uni week where I upload a uni video every single day that's going to be helpful for you guys. So let me know any ideas you have down below, and yeah, let me know if you preferred halls to houses. See you in my next video. Bye.